So some of the market considerations in the wearables market, we anticipate the wearables market to reach $25 billion by 2019. We expect the market to grow almost threefold, where we'll see more than 245 million wearable devices sold in the year 2019. Smartwatches, we've noticed, are kind of the most valuable segment. That takes about 60% of the market into consideration, where fitness trackers were really the most popular. So those were accounting for more than half of the wearable shipments in 2015. But we see that more than twice as many people in key markets are aware of the Apple Watch, which, again, could be probably name recognition and advertising there. Corporate interest is generating substantial potential in revenue. Of course, we're also looking at the methodology of these types of things as well. So what are the drivers of wearable device growth?
So in taking a look at the different drivers, we saw two unique employers seeking information about wearable device at major technology shows, and price reductions, form and function of fitness trackers influencing market expansion. So what were these results?
And a drum roll, please.
Total wearable device shipment volume increased 67.2% year over year.
And I think someone's playing tricks on us with our slides because they keep moving at quite a rapid rate. So we'll just keep trying to manage the slides so that they'll stop moving forward and backward. We apologize for the technical difficulty here. Okay. So moving on, employers and wearables, the real story. So what is the real story? Sorry about that. What is the bottom line? Okay, so what we discovered is, of course, employers want wearables, but they lack knowledge. And so a lot of them don't currently offer them. And even one person in the survey said, we count the steps, but not so much the calories, which isn't, actually factual. So again, leads us to the education point. And we at the Corporate Health and Wellness Association intend to work with our partners to make sure that the education is there for employers to understand, more about wearables and implementation and how they can implement them in their programs and what the good, the bad, and the ugly is about implementation. So we have our work cut out for us, I think, in this. They're adapting, today's employers are adapting to new wearable device realities. And, there's successes and challenges that they face.
So some of the key successes that we've seen around wearable devices based upon our survey is incentives used to create behavior change positioned as a reward. Data collection is automatic with technology platform use. Wearable device use reinforces behavior change, and social connection boosts wellness. Positive online community experience, very similar to the gamification that we've seen with other types of wellness initiatives. Some of the challenges that we saw included the legal liabilities of data collection, lack of education around technology. Again, the lack of education around the technology is definitely something that the CHWA will help and assist in, and accuracy of data and data manipulation.
Right, so just making sure that everything is accurate and clean. And, one of our colleagues actually said this out loud, and I thought it was important to include. He said, we must set aside the popular societal trends of wearable technology to uncover the truth about the success and challenges employers face with the devices. Volume is key, but it does not equate to value. So, really, it's important to see good value in that. And we want to talk about the latest in wearable workplace wellness. So what are the trends that we're seeing? Employers generally are satisfied with wearable device use of employee population. But, they cite, and they also cite a happier workforce when they're using the wearable devices. But they do indicate that lack of education impacts their adoption of technology. And they feel maybe steps are counted, but calories are not. And also feel that there's a lot of cost concerns remaining and there's a barrier for integration. And finally, management of private data creates a hesitancy to adopt technology. So those are kind of their overall challenges and the trends that we see kind of moving forward with the wearable technology.
So now we're going to take a look at what employers think of wearable technology within the workforce and what are some of the different barriers.
Sorry about that.
So there's confusion around technology, confusion around technology is one of the most pressing challenges for our employers. They need actionable health data. There's a lack of understanding on how to analyze the thousands of different data points surrounding wearable devices. Uncertainty on which device to choose and why. And some of the common questions are, can we use a technology platform for employees to use their own devices? How much of an investment do we make in order to collect the right amount of data? And what do we do with the devices if the wearable program does not work?
Right, so we have to look at the state of wearables in the workplace, participation and engagement. And again, we're talking about engagement, which is kind of the trend. And I read an article this morning about how large employers in the 20,000 plus are spending about $800 plus on wellness programs. But employees are leaving dollars on the table by not engaging in those programs. In other words, they aren't taking advantage or engaging in those programs. And so what we are kind of forecasting, though we don't have a crystal ball, but we can see, from a logic deduction that if you can offer something that's kind of a gamification or a play to offer to your employees such as Wearables, that's going to help the engagement and the participation. So really interesting. We talked about employer satisfaction of wearables too, and I think that's important. Like, what is their opinion of this? And 45% of employers were generally satisfied with wearable devices in the workplace, but 38% wanted to see more employee engagement. And 17% said that they were very, very satisfied, but 0% said they were dissatisfied. So what does that mean to us? I mean, I think it means that there's a huge market for folks to engage and learn about these products and services. And so I think, there's a lot of opportunity here for sure. And then, this slide kind of goes into a little bit more about participation and engagement. We talk about how less than 20% of employers are very satisfied with participation and engagement of their workforce. So, there are not a lot that are very satisfied. Less than 50% are generally satisfied, and more than 33% of employers would like to see more employee engagement. So I find that to be very telling as well, and that engagement is key, and wearables create action and create, camaraderie in that we can compete with one another. And so I think those kinds of things are going to help with that statistic.
So in taking a look at how employers are measuring the impact of their wearable devices, 79.1% measured the happiness of their workforce in order to determine the success of their wearable device program. 61.5% of employers took a look at weight loss in determining the successfulness of their wearable device program. 44% improved productivity, and 30.8% used a decrease in absenteeism as a measurement for the success of their wearables program.
Right, and I think this also speaks to kind of that direct ROI, right? If you have a decrease in absenteeism, if you're measuring, weight loss, which ultimately does make us healthier, and improve productivity, you're going to see an increase on your bottom line and a decrease in your healthcare costs. It's just logical. This is an interesting statistic, and I think the most telling there was probably the decrease in absenteeism, because more people at work is more productive work. So a very interesting measurement tool.
And I'd also like to go back, I think, too, and I think the direct correlation, too, as an industry, we're shifting more towards counting smiles. I think it was pretty significant taking a look at 79% are taking a look at actually the happiness of their employees in order to measure the success of the program.
Right. So we were talking about incentives and rewards, and we talked about how in this survey how the majority of employers offer incentives, with half trying not to use, not tying the use of wearable devices to rewards. So we found that to be interesting. And then the remaining half of employers either used incentives to engage wearable devices, or they didn't offer incentives at all. And, we have partners that offer incentives, gift cards and things like that. And, they definitely tend to make the engagement for wellness programs much higher when you offer incentives. What I also thought was interesting was the top 3 rewards for wearable use. They're all kind of wellness related, right? 74% gave, water bottles or equipment of some sort. Then, we also had the others giving discounts on insurance premiums, followed by a discount on a gym membership. So all encompassing this wellness, incentive that ties into wellness as an individual.
So now we're going to take a look at, the platforms. In one of our questions we asked, if you have a wearable technology platform in place, does it restrict employees from using other wearable devices from other manufacturers? And the majority of the employers, 63%, say employees are not restricted. A small number of employers did not know, about 16%, and the remaining number of employers, 21%, said yes, employees are restricted. Furthermore, this is kind of a look again. Employers were split nearly 50-50 on whether or not the technology platform affected employee engagement. The majority of employees allow employees to use their own devices to participate in their wellness program, or in the program.
So can an employee use his or her own personal device to participate in the program? A resounding yes from our surveyed guests. So 89% said, sure, why not? And we talked about increasing participation and engagement. I actually think we're emphasizing now how employers like to kind of develop team fitness challenges, monetary rewards, and internal wellness champion programs, as well as paid time off, that's a big one, and charitable donations. So more and more, we're seeing people implement social responsibility as part of the core of their wellness program. So your incentives for engagement would be, maybe a paid day off, or if you're a charitable giver or you have a certain number of hours or time that you need to put in, perhaps that could go towards your incentive for your wellness program. So very interesting.
And actually, we saw, with a partner of ours, some interesting statistics around an increase in participation in the corporate wearables fitness challenges when it was tied towards charitable donations.
Right, like birthdays and that kind of thing.
Right, versus the monetary reward.
Very interesting data. So that leads us to data collection.
Yeah. So now we'll take a look at data collection and employers' insights and thoughts around this. Employers are seeking several ways to gather their information for selecting the best devices and platforms. 50% actually are going to Google and looking at internet search research in determining which devices and platforms. 46% receive their information from conference exhibitions and trade shows. 35% word of mouth. And nearly 27% of employers indicate they did not know how to receive data or how to research wearable devices.
So that's a huge challenge for them. And, you know, again, it leads into that education point that we've been kind of talking about. So CHWA is committed then to work with our partners to help educate employers, and also other employers that are doing it well. We'll be helping educate employers on, you know, what are the latest and greatest trends for wellness. And so we also have the question, you know, how will you determine which platform to use that will have the maximum employee engagement? So 50% of the surveyed participants said they do an internet research or Google it, or, you know, and interestingly, we had a recent study where we asked employers where they get most of their news and insights, and they indicated through social media, you know, online. And so, you know, 50%. The rest, almost half of the others, will get it at a conference. And so we're really happy to be able to provide that large LinkedIn presence where you can get your answers from us, as well as a conference where you can talk to one another. And then the rest you can see vendor solicitation, word of mouth, and platforms. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
So taking a look a little bit more at data collection and the data and the pureness of the data. On a scale of 1 to 10, remember how important is verifiability of your data in implementing wearables in your work in your wellness program?
So, you know, they said like 8% thought that it was very important. And I mean, that's you know, data is important. So we have to find that key. Sorry. And then another question that we asked, on a scale of 1 to 10, how easy or difficult do you feel it is to collect data? 1 being easy and, you know, 10 being difficult. And 7% thought it would be difficult to collect data. You know, I found that interesting because there are platforms that communicate directly with our wearable devices. And so it's not difficult to collect that information, and as long as you've got the right platform in place that works for your population, as well as you know, wearable devices hooked up, I mean, it's actually pretty simple. So again, it's an education thing that I think we're missing here, and that was an interesting piece of data.
So the majority of employers say they plan to evaluate their program with the data they collect and do not consider it difficult to collect the data. So about 55% evaluate their program using the data.
How does sorry. How does collecting this data actually, you know, help you as an employer? Really interesting, the answer. Like, the majority looks like it helps them increase engagement. Track activity, followed by increasing engagement. So the two things, getting more active and increasing engagement, those two things are kind of big. And of course, tracking ROI. And once you see people are losing weight, they're more active, you have less absenteeism, you're going to be able to collect data on that ROI. So it's going to be really interesting.
And I think furthermore, with this question, you know, a significant number is 22% of the employers do not know how the data is helping them.
Right.
So going back to, you know, what does your data mean? You know, what are you collecting from it, and what, you know, how are you going to develop your strategies around it?
Right. So what are the wellness goals of employers? Sorry about that.
So nearly 65% of employer wellness programs do not include wearable devices currently. Popular and common wellness goals include increased physical activity, increased employee engagement, improve users' health habits. The least common wellness goals are improve users' sleep habits, improve results from health screenings, and improve employee performance and productivity.
And so I wonder if, as time goes on, those might flip. as we start seeing more research, on sleep, and as we start seeing more research on the results from those health screenings, and of course, as we see that improved employee performance through productivity, maybe the most common will be less common, and you'll see more I think those two will flip is what I'm trying to say, that we'll see, goals, employers kind of focus on the less common goals. But it's an interesting data for sure. And then we also looked at how they rate in wellness programs, how wearable devices rate, and why employers implement wearable devices. So, obviously it's to increase employee activity and to increase accountability, to improve engagement, to improve cooperation, and for ease of tracking. And quite frankly, as I said, if you've got the right platform in place and you've got the right, everybody's kind of logged in correctly, there's a lot of ease in collecting that data.
So in taking a look at the concerns regarding wearable devices that employers have, a little over 24% saw the cost is one of their main concerns. Ease of use is another top concern. And then taking a look at, accuracy was about half that of the cost, which was kind of surprising. We also had low engagement as a concern. Battery life, very kind of low on the scale, as well as style. Privacy, which we've seen a lot as well in the media, wasn't too significant of a concern of the employers.
Right. I mean, mainly it was cost. So it's, how do we afford to do it? And, how do we implement it and where do we budget for it? And I think, there are definitely ways to do that and to then directly correlate that spend with the ROI on what you spent. As you look at the involvement of the employee and the interaction of the employee and the data that you collect, both the data from the device as well as looking at the bottom line in your profit and loss statements. And if employers don't currently use wearables in the workplace, employers who didn't currently use wearables in the workplace had an opportunity to use them. One of the top three reasons they would be exciting, one of the top three reasons they said they would use them was because they were exciting and fun. That's a tongue twister, I apologize. They said that they would be exciting and fun. So fun being the most exciting reason to use them. And I think that, again, that's that measurement of smiles, right, is to bring in something fun and engaging into the workplace. And some of the statistics that we saw, we ultimately will see an increase in user activity, physical activity. And so, it is true. The minute I put my wearable device on, I'm considering, when am I getting up to walk? When am I getting up to move? And I even have a reminder that buzzes every hour that reminds me to do it. So I'm increasing my activity. I'm not sitting and I'm not stagnant because I have that information. And so 76% said, it would increase the physical activity, followed by, increasing employee engagement. So if we have a problem with engagement, right, we think that wearables are going to give us that, engagement that we're lacking. And so that's an interesting statistic that we receive. And then there are other statistics that you can see. I think that the most telling, though, for me was that 63% thought that there would be, an increasing in engagement. And, if you read any article, now or before on wellness, that's one of the biggest challenges is that engagement.
So taking a look at employers and kind of where wearable devices and their place within a wellness program are headed, employers, these are some of their responses as it relates to the expansion of their wearable device program. 42.6% said they want to offer better devices. So very significant. 22.47, so almost 23% said they would like to expand their programming and their wearable fitness challenges. 12.35% want to increase their outreach. slightly small percentage, kind of, but still significant, would like to provide discounts, and 6.7% want to allow charitable donations as tied to their wellness and wearable device challenges.
So some of the key conclusions or key points from employers, they said, until wearable companies facilitate education for employers, self-guided training is going to remain, to educate employers and the employee population. So I think that's kind of where we're going to come in and working with partners to hopefully bring more, good content and education to you on this matter. Technology is advancing rapidly. So with the introduction of biometric wearables and integrated platforms, employers need access to additional wearable education. So another education. Wellness programs have to reevaluate the legal implications regarding HIPAA. So HIPAA is governing those, and so obviously those have to be taken into account. And then restructuring incentive plans and simplifying rollout procedures, and obviously procedures in place help everything kind of roll out in a more simplified manner. And then, prioritizing employee engagement strategies. It's really important to decide where you want to roll these out and kind of where you're going to engage the employees. So those are some key points I think we learned. And then, of course, the future of wearables and wellness programming. Like, where do we see that going?
So with employers, further increase in employee engagement must improve communication among employees. So communication is key. Education, best practices on utilizing of wearable devices and leveraging data collection. So, more employers in sharing those, tactics or lessons learned in regards to employee engagement, communication, and on the employee level, behavioral changes required to increase wearable success. So before we break into our Q&A segment, some of you may have noticed in the news, we wanted to give reference to specifically what happened yesterday with Fitbit. Most, if not all, wearable devices and fitness trackers allow employers to collect the number of steps in their data collection. Step count is the easiest data point to collect, but Fitbit's tracker counts heart rate too. And according to a recent study, there's a big problem. A new study claims the company's popular heart rate tracker are highly inaccurate. Researchers at California State Polytechnic University Sonoma tested the heart rates of 43 healthy adults and found their heart rates are off by 20 beats on average. Jen, do you believe employers are most concerned with collecting the number of steps as a data point rather than the number of calories or measures of heart rate?
Step count is the easiest data point to collect, but that shouldn't rule out heart rate. And, our study shows that almost 3/4 of employers selected a Fitbit. Well, it's likely because of, its name recognition. But, our survey then showed that they weren't sure what to choose if not Fitbit. And I think with this recent news, and our survey results, this is a classic example of our CHWA statement that, volume doesn't necessarily equate to value.
Excellent, Jen. So now I'd like to announce the opportunity to take our audience's questions. You can begin typing those in the Q&A box in the bottom right-hand corner, and we'll start. We've got our first question. Jen, when you talk about the importance of volume in the wearables market and how it does not equate to value, what do you mean?
Volume is a term used in wearables market that, kind of focuses on how the units are shipped each year. So that number is growing because of demand, including the consumer demand, and it's growing exponentially. But the CHWA found that volume doesn't necessarily equate to value because not all those fitness trackers are really alike. And so our survey found that as popular as the devices are, employers are hesitant in integrating them, again, into their workforce. So there are a lot of questions here. And a lot of comments, good comments, actually. I'll ask you this one, Sarah. While steps and/or physical are clearly the primary rewardable metrics, what other metrics are companies surveyed using as part of their rewards program?
I would say with that one, we're taking a look at the actual,
the metrics of like what they're doing with regard to participating in some of the food challenges that they have, participating in some of the other fitness challenges that they have, and certainly, participating in taking the steps necessary to maybe save on the cost of their insurance. So they were able to actually measure that way. Let's see. There's another question here. How are the measurements, reductions in absenteeism, happier workplace conducted? Self-report over the last 12 months or what period of time? Standardized questionnaire or instruments? Thanks. So that's a really good question. Essentially, we just asked them, how they measure the measurement of their various tactics. And what they said was they measure it by, the employers surveys that they measure it by the happiness of their employees or by their absenteeism. So further digging down, it was, based on, kind of their opinion of how they measure it, how each employer measures it. But they didn't indicate via, how they measure it on whether it was a 12-month scale or whether it was, annualized. So an interesting question and probably something we can dig deeper into.
And the employers that completed the survey and self-reported their information did not denote the time frame for their measurement.
Right. There's a few we didn't get answered.
Sorry. John asks, there have been some studies done that indicate that Fitbits are not accurate and don't track steps accurately. Are you aware of this or have data around best practices?
I think regarding Fitbit, the company is facing scrutiny right now. Yesterday that study came out about a university in California that said, like Sarah was mentioning before, the Fitbit's pulse fitness trackers were not accurate in measuring the heart rate actually. So, that was just a report that was out in the news yesterday.
We have another question. Other than fitness wearables, what other wearables are under consideration? Although fitness trackers do dominate the market, in the wearable technology space, devices can do everything from tracking the heart rate to calories and steps, such as monitoring blood glucose levels for diabetes, sleep. I think we're even seeing there's wearable devices out there now that help in guiding, your meditation.
Right. There's a lot of questions for the audience, and I think we're going to have to post these questions. I'm actually going to email these questions out and the answers that we got because I think in the interest of time, we want to give everybody the opportunity to get back to work, but we really do appreciate all of your attention and sorry for some of the technical difficulties, but we're excited about the survey and we're really excited to be able to share it with you. And can we take one more, do you think? One of the questions was how many employers were surveyed. So we sent the survey to 1,000 top employers, again, between 50 employees to 50,000 plus employees, and there were 300 that were responding to the survey. So on this survey, we had 300 responses that responded in full. Okay, so we're going to post these questions for everybody to listen to later, and I apologize again for the technical difficulties, and we hope that you enjoyed the presentation. Of course, you have access to the survey. We'd love to see you at our annual conference, which is coming up again in September, the 25th through the 28th, and we're offering a special discount to participants as well. I think if you use the code sorry, let me talk about the conference a little bit.
Well, no, yes, and with our annual conference, the Corporate Wellness Conference, as many of you know, we will be addressing a lot of the different challenges that we identified within these surveys. We do have a session around, the collection of data. We actually have a keynote panel on big data, so we'll also be addressing, the gathering of this data and how it's being used by the employers. Additionally, we have legalities in wellness program data. We'll have a wearables device think tank. This will be our 3rd annual, where employers will go home with free wearable devices that they can demo out both at the conference and then post-conference. And then we'll have an employer panel as well. So a lot of great, earlier in the presentation we saw how taking a look at employer-shared case studies, and you'll have access to that at our annual conference.
So hopefully, again, as I was mentioning, you won't miss out on our offer for today. I forgot to talk about the Healthiest Employers Award ceremony. So we're also going to have our 2nd annual Healthiest Employers Award ceremony, where we will be bringing together the top 100 employers in the country to receive awards and accolades for their wellness programs and their initiatives that they've rolled out. So this is an exciting time to come together for both brokers, consultants, wellness managers, as well as employers to see who's the best of the best and who's doing it right. And you'll get to hear from them. So that's a really exciting event. Hopefully you'll get to join us for that.
Yep, and that's open to all of our attendees at this year's conference. So before we end today, we want to extend a complimentary pass to all of you employers, employee benefits managers, global wellness managers, fitness professionals or dietitians that work for some of the employer groups. Just use the code Wearables16 and get your free pass if you register before Friday, June 24th. And again, we will be sending you each a replay of today's webinar. We'll also be posting some of your questions via social media and get some discussions going and get your thoughts and responses to some of the questions. And want to thank each and every one of you again for your time in joining us today.
Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Bye-bye.